Hi everyone, good morning. This is Rakesh. Welcome back. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video, we will see what is difference between property banding and interpolation in Angular. This is a very important for interview purpose. So I am making this video after a long time. So please sorry. And so let's start with what is the basic difference between interpolation and property banding, right? So let's write here heading difference between property banding and interpolation, right? Interpolation. So there are many difference between interpolation. So the first difference is whenever we will use a property banding, we need to use a square bracket, right? And whenever we will use interpolation, we need to use double curly bracket. So the thing is here. So what is the main difference between property and interpolation? So let's take one example. So I'm just using one input field here, and inside this input field we type text, and let's say I'm just using property banding first, right? So here we will just pass here value. Inside this value we will create one properties for this input field property banding. So let's create properties. So now here this is a component file ts file. We will just create a two properties. First for property banding and second for uh, interpolation. So let's create a one property. Let's say first name, right? Name, let's say Rakesh, and another name is we can your last name Sharma, right? So these two properties we will pass inside this app.component.html, right? So inside this input field we have used property banding. Inside this property banding we will pass first properties, first name, right? We will copy this properties and paste inside this field, inside this property banding. Now let's close this tag, and another thing, let's use a br tag for better understanding. And now another thing, we will just copy this input field and paste inside this yeah. Now let's copy another properties, last name. We have last name, and we'll copy these properties and paste inside this double quote. So this is for properties binding, and this is for interpolation. So whenever we will use interpolation, we will use double curly bracket. Inside this double curly bracket, I will just pass properties name, right? And here we can remove square bracket. So this is a property binding and this is a interpolation. Now let's save this file. First let's save this file. Now here you can see the data is displaying same output. So what is the main difference, right? The thing is here how we can, like if I talk about one, let's take one example. Suppose that property binding can handle disable properties, disable attribute, but interpolation cannot handle disable attribute. So how we can possible? So let's take one example. Let's say use here inside property binding. Now here we will just use, let's use disable properties attribute, and inside this attribute I will just pass inside property binding, right? And we will just pass here, let's say we will create a one properties for disable. So let's create a one properties, let's say disable, disable data. We can write any data, any name, and we will just write here, let's say we can write here true. By default initially it will true, right? Let's save this, and now let's copy this data properties name, and now let's paste inside this disable properties. Okay. So this is for property binding, and now let's copy this, and same thing we will just here paste and remove from here property binding. I will use interpolation, right? So we will just write use double curly bracket and paste, right? Now let's save this file. Now here you can see two field, you can see here first name and last name is looking disabled. So if I talk about, if I want to enable these properties and this properties first name and last name properties, so how we can use, suppose that let's say create a one button for disable click event. So here just use button, and inside this button we will use click event binding. I hope you already have aware with click event binding. So here we will create a one function, let's say disable, let's say you can write here enable data, right? Enable data, and simply this is just nothing, it is just a function, and let's copy this function. And first of all, let's I want to return something here, this dot disable data equal to false. Whenever click on this button, it will return false value, right? That means initially disable data is true, and whenever click on this function, a button, so it will return this value, false value. Now let's save this file. Now let's move on here, and I will paste, and here we can write button name enable data. Now let's save this file. Whenever click on this button, it will see, it will return. Now here you can see carefully, so data is displaying. So first is here property binding is automatically, whenever click on this button, it will enable. Now if I talk about interpolation, there nothing happened, nothing any changes. So you can see, so this is a very important difference, and it's a very big difference between interpolation and property binding, right? Let's save, let's again. Now here you can see carefully, this is disable enable, and this is still enable disable, right? So thank you so much, thanks watching this video, and in next video we will see some interview question for Angular developer. And thank you so much, thanks.